They're like two vehicles. And let's say Bitcoin is a bicycle, but Ethereum is a Tesla.
The way I think about this, as Elena was describing that, the blockchain and as a basic thing, it's a database. So for Bitcoin, it's a database of financial transactions. It's a database of who owns what money. And in Ethereum, it's a much more universal system. It's a universal database. You can store any kind of data. And also, it's a database that has a built-in programming language. One analogy that I really like is Bitcoin is like HTML, and Ethereum is like JavaScript. So you can build a pretty decent website with HTML. But if you add JavaScript, then it becomes a really interactive online application that we're used to. So with Ethereum, you can use it as a currency. You can use it to store your personal identity data, your health data, your insurance. There's no limit. So again, it's a universal system, and it's obviously to do this, it's a much more complicated system, much more ambitious system with many more problems to deal with, and that's the power, and that's the risk of Ethereum.
So I'll take it a step further. I think there's, this goes back to the whole knowledge and education piece. What we call cryptocurrencies, this like basket catch-all term, is actually incorrect in terms of categorization. There's three main categories. There's cryptocurrencies, which is what we consider, Bitcoin, Zcash, Dash, Monero, Litecoin. There's crypto commodities, which I think Ethereum would fall into very well, which essentially allow you it gives you access to interact with a protocol, right? So with Ethereum, the protocol it's a virtual computer. It's kind of like it's a developer platform and a few other things as well. And then you have crypto tokens, which allow you as an end user to, for example, on the Steam platform, to interact with their actual end interface. So there's like three distinct categories, and I think it's very useful to perpetuate this particular narrative because not everything is a cryptocurrency as a catch-all term the way it's being portrayed, and they all have various characteristics. And I'll just plug a quick book, Chris Berninsky, Crypto Assets. He like explains everything down to a T.
Yeah, I would just quickly add to that is that I think that what Bitcoin set out to solve was the question of sovereignty, right? So the idea that you have sovereign value, whether it be in sovereign money, sovereign assets that would look to deem valuable, so whether it be digital gold or something in that sort, right? So really what the question it was trying to solve is trust.
I think simply Bitcoin is a store of value and Ethereum is a decentralized application platform.
Here's my personal view, and again, not investment advice, but I think my personal view is that we tend to see projects that I would bucket into three general categories. I would say, as you kind of rightfully pointed out, there's a lot of protocols getting developed that are kind of, envisioning new ways of building blockchains, envisioning new layers of infrastructure that they foresee as missing. Many of these will not be right in their guesses, but at least they're building at the protocol layer. These tend to be projects focused on privacy, on scalability, on interoperability, on whatever at the protocol layer. So that's one bucket. I think there's a lot of value going into these. If you look at the top 20 coins today in terms of market cap, they generally tend to be these protocol coins. Second bucket, I would say, is projects that are building financial infrastructure. So saying, how do I create better on and off ramps into these capital markets? Wallets, exchanges, lending platforms, anything that is kind of an ease of interaction with the financial aspect of this market. And there's an enormous number of these. You got newer companies like Salt Lending and older companies like just the average wallet and exchange that's been around for years. And all of these kind of fall into how are you onboarding into this market from a capital perspective. And I think the third one is the so-called app coin that is saying, well, how do I reinvent the Uber on the blockchain or the music downloading industry on the blockchain or any innumerable number of app use cases. Again, I'll speak very personally biased here, that I think that bucket, as much as that's the long-term potential of what we're enabling, is still dramatically too early for the state of the infrastructure. And I think we need more easy on-ramps and off-ramps, so financial infrastructure is incredibly important. And I think we need more infrastructure built at the tech layer. So at the very least, let's say if you had a thesis, my thesis would probably be focus on bucket number 1 and bucket number 2, and wait a few years before you go into bucket number 3.
Fire!